Hey guys, how's it going? This is going to be a very interesting video because it's kind of like a redundant video. So, today I'm going to be talking about all of the rainbow changes I want to see in Rainbow Six Siege. Here's the catch. All of these changes are kind of outdated. All of these things I've already this is from like years ago. Let me actually see if I can find, if I go into my properties, I wonder if I can actually see exactly when I created this. The one for Rainbow Six Changes I created in, or no, the last time I modified it. I don't know when I created it, but the last time I modified it was 10/16/2019, which is October 16th, 2019. Um and the other one, which is operator changes in Siege, I think. Operator changes in Siege, operator ideas and changes. The last time I modified this, according to File Explorer, was 9/2/2019. So September 2nd, 2019. Also have Operation User Experience, which we'll get into as well. I created Operation User Experience in 10/28/2018. So over a year ago, December 28th, 2018. So I will, that sounds good to me. All right, so let's get right into it. So let's start off with operator ideas and changes. Attackers can use a spotter drone to mark the location of defender traps for a limited time. Okay. Okay. That one's pretty good. It reminds me of using the spotter perk in Modern Warfare, which is funny because, like I said, this came out. All of these ideas are months old at this point. Um, one of them almost, yeah, there was two plus three. One of them's 5 months old. So, like I said, this is some old stuff, but very interesting nonetheless. Defenders can enable a temporary boost that enables them to run outside for multiple seconds without being spotted, but cannot use any weapon, including melee. So the reason why I came up with this, I remember coming up with this. The reason why I came up with this is because on the old canal, not that it doesn't apply for the new canal, but when I was thinking about it, I was saying for the old canal, I wish there was a way that you could like super sprint. Originally I was thinking I wish there was a way that you could super sprint fast enough that you could get away. You could get from one side of the building to the other. Like you could go from the garage of Control Center, and you could run fast enough to get to the basement of Coast Guard. And but then I thought about it. I'm like, no, I just want an ability where you can sprint, but for a limited amount of time, you're not visible on the radar, and it's specifically for positioning purposes. That way, you can get flanks that the attackers would normally not expect, and they can't use melee, so it's not like they can run up and stab them. But it's essentially for the element of surprise, and I think that would be really, really interesting. Another operator sets down a plate of armor, much like Rook, which comes active defense system like device strapped to their back that can block one projectile. When they die, the ADS system is destroyed. So I worded that horribly. What essentially I mean is you strap this little device to a person's back, to a defender's back, um, and essentially what it is it destroys one projectile if they're within the radius of that projectile. So if you try and throw a grenade at this operator, or any operator who picks up the pack, the thing will destroy the projectile. So yeah, looking at it now, that might be a little bit OP, but I think it's still a pretty solid idea. This was before the whole idea of a Jaeger replacement was even thought of by anybody. So I was thinking of a Jaeger replacement before. Well, I'm not going to say that, but definitely before the um, introduction or reveal of Wamai. So I was thinking of this guy. Probably, I mean, obviously, Ubisoft was thinking about the same guy at the same time, even earlier, clearly, because they developed the operator. But I was thinking about him before they introduced this operator as well. and a lot of people were. I'm not saying I'm special, but I think that's kind of interesting. So for either attack or defense, there's a operator that has a passive ability that makes switching between weapons and from your phone completely silent. So this isn't their main ability, but it's just like a passive ability. So that way they can like switch from their primary to the secondary, and it's completely silent. The other team cannot hear it. Or they can switch from their phone to their gun and vice versa, and it's completely silent, but it's for like a particularly stealthy operator, and it's not like an overblown thing, because that would be really annoying. But I think that would be really cool, because being able hearing that is like such a notification. Having that stealthy element is really nice. Um, Place down an indestructible healing plate that can be used to naturally or manually heal teammates as much as they need with a total use limit. So basically, what I'm thinking of is the microwave from Gmod TTT. You can either go to Let's Play / Achievement Hunter or Yogscast. As far as basically the same idea. You have a microwave, you go up to it and you heal up and stuff like that. So essentially, if you have that in Rainbow Six, not extremely original, but at the same time would be a very big deal for Rainbow Six. And I would also like to see a new attacker with the K1A, a defender with the 1911, and either a new attacker or defender with the FO12. Remember, this was before the FO12 nerf. So I was like, yeah, give an attacker the FO12. That'd be really cool. And this was before Boss G ACOG as well. But yeah, new attacker with K1A. At the time, I was just thinking K1A, because at the time, before Operation Shifting Tides, it was established that every weapon would have a specific set of attachments, and those specific set of attachments were for every single character. So if you have one operator with one set of attachments, those attachments would apply to every character. Operation Shifting Tides broke that trend by having the AUG A2, but one attachment, that being the ACOG scope, is only available to one attacker or one operator, but not the other. And that blew my mind. I didn't think they were going to do that. I thought that it was an established trend that if a weapon has an attachment, that's available for every operator that has that weapon. But I guess that's not the case. Now they have free reign to have a K1A with ACOG if need be. Current operator changes. This is the big one. Finka Stim also gives a small amount of permanent health, unless above max health. Also can stand up after an air jab knockdown faster. So, if your teammate, first off, the first part, Stim also gives a small amount of health, permanent health. This one's super simple. It's just like a healing operator. Like, instead of Finka just temporarily healing you, she gives you like 15 or so permanent health, or maybe 10, because that would be overpowered if it was 15 and you had 3 of them. But 10 or 5 permanent health, and it's applied to everyone on the team. So if you really wanted to, if everybody was weak, you could give everybody a certain amount of health, unless of course they go if they're above max health, in which case they will incrementally go down, just like Doc. Also, they can stand up after being knocked down by an air jab faster. So if Nomad sits down an air jab and a teammate walks into it, and both an attacker and a defender get knocked down, the attacker will get up faster if they are stimmed. I think that would be really, really interesting interaction. Maverick. Maverick cannot burn through electrified walls as easily, which means it either takes longer or sounds louder. Now, this was back when I had a lot of issues with Maverick. I think this was before they nerfed his sounds, before it sounded so loud, but I'm not 100% sure. At the time I was like, they really need to fix Maverick, so I don't know. We'll see. But I think that a Maverick adjustment would be nice. For both Lesion and Ying, I would like them to have completely new optics. I would like the developers to replace the Micro T1 with the Yagnob HD 106. I would like them to replace the ACOG with the JGBG M7 and replace the Hollow with the True Glow True Bite. Now, if you have no idea what those scopes are / sights are, first of all, look them up. Second of all, if you look them up, they might seem familiar to you. Yes, that is because they are all from Battlefield 4. These are the Chinese weapon attachments that you get for Battlefield 4. And that I would like them to introduce them for the Chinese operators, even though they're Hong Kong, but administratively, Hong Kong is part of China. It is under a special administrative region, but it is administratively part of China. So yeah, makes sense to me. Rook armor plates are indestructible. This is super simple. And why do I want armor plates to be indestructible? First off, to stop all the trolling that happens with people who will place down a Rook armor plate, pick up their Rook armor, and then destroy the Rook armor plate before the rest of the team picks them up. That is really, really annoying. And that would, it doesn't happen often, but man, when it does, it's so annoying. Also, it would be more, it would also require the team, if a team has less than 5 players, it would require them to think more about where they want to set up their Rook plates. And I think what would be even interesting, let me add on top of this, imagine if there was actually 6 armor plates. That would be really interesting, because if there were 6 armor plates, that means that there's 1 extra. If it's indestructible, that means that the defenders actually have to really think about where they want to place it, because if they place it in the middle of the objective, or if they place it nowhere near the objective, and all the defenders pick it up, there's 1 extra Rook armor plate that the attacker can pick up. I really, really enjoy how the attackers can pick up Rook armor, and I wish there was a little bit more of a dynamic against it. Unfortunately, it's often not the case because Rook or a teammate just destroys the Rook armor. But if they were indestructible, I think that would be really, really cool, because it adds this risk-reward element. You know, you can set up the Rook armor plates and use them as a distraction, right? Like, you can set, for example, I saw this in videos by some YouTuber, I don't know who, but they were setting up Rook armor plates on top of hatches, and they would blow open the hatches from underneath and kill the person picking up the Rook armor plates. Now, imagine that if you had 5 Rook armor plates and everyone picked them up, you could set it up. You can use, there is such a lot of potentially interesting interactions. Now, obviously, you know, when I say it's indestructible, I mean to bullets and gunfire. Bullets and explosives. Obviously, if you set it on top of a hatch and destroy the hatch from underneath, it'll get destroyed. So, yeah, I think that would be really, really cool. More interactions and the attackers being able to pick up the Rook armor, I think, is really interesting. Zofia. This one's a bit controversial, but we'll see. Can withstand out of frost traps once, but it's loud and takes about 10 seconds. Now, I don't know about this. This would be really annoying to me if I was a frost and one out of my 3, one out of my 3 traps was successful, and then she just gets out of it on her own. I don't know, but I think it would be interesting. But I don't know. Yeah, jury's out on that one. So, castle, barricade, and armor panel deployment. I misspelled panel apparently. Barricade and armor panel deployment and removal is slightly and significantly faster, respectively. So, setting up your armor panels is slightly faster, and destroying your or removing your armor panels is significantly faster. So, you can set up an armor panel and destroy it very quickly and come in for a sneak attack. That would make castle a lot more useful, because, you know, right now it's too easy to counter it, right? Like, if you hear somebody breaking down a castle barricade, it's so loud. Not only do you have the sound of them, tearing it down in the first place, but the sound it makes after the fact is really loud. If that was faster, I feel like it would be a lot more useful. Anyways, Amaru. So Amara was available at the time, obviously. Amaru. The barricade doesn't get destroyed as quickly when rappelling through windows. So, as you may know about Amaru, when she grapples onto a window, it destroys the barricade as soon as the grapple attaches, which is a very loud and noticeable indicator. I would prefer if it did not destroy the barricade. Actually, looking at it now, I prefer if it didn't destroy the barricade, period. And she smashed through the barricade like a crazy person. But obviously, you have sound clues to indicate where she's coming from. So it's not overpowered. It's just, if you're not paying attention, it could catch you off guard. And I think that would make Amaru extremely useful. Amaru is just, she's too unreliable. She's too easy to counter. She has like a very long, like once you repel in the objective, it takes like 5 seconds to actually use your weapons. I'm exaggerating, but it's ridiculous. And I feel like having a little bit of a more surprise element would be very much needed. Tachanka. Give them a new weapon, preferably an AS Val or VSS with a new scope that's like an ACOG, could be based off of the PS01. So this was like, before a lot of people were really talking about Tachanka nerfs, I would say, or Tachanka changes. And my suggestion was give him the AS Val or the VSS, and give him like some kind of ACOG scope. That way he's useful. Tachanka with an ACOG is actually useful. You know what I mean? And I think that would be really, really cool. Nook, she gets a new weapon, the F2000 with a special F2000 scope. That would be very interesting. So essentially, she gets this new assault rifle that could be very powerful, but they can balance it. And this was way back when she was awful, right? She was nowhere near as good. She was like she barely had any time in Pro League, really. But this was before the most recent changes. I don't think this is necessary anymore, but it's interesting to look back at it. But because Nook is actually really good now with the new FMG updates. But yeah, I think that's kind of interesting. Warden, he gets a new weapon, the P90 Classic. It has similar stats to the P90, but no ACOG, and it gets a new default scope. The one that is based off of Rainbow Six Siege Vegas, or Rainbow Six Vegas. So you guys know the ring sight, the built-in ring sight for the P90 that you see in Rainbow Six Vegas, that you see in other games. Yeah, basically have that for Warden. It's like a new variant of the P90 that has that, or a CBJ MS. You guys remember the CBJ MS from Call of Duty Ghosts and Battlefield 4? Yeah, bring that on there. Why not? That would be a new weapon. Also can use the Glance Smart Glass without having to wait for it to fully recharge, much like Nook and Kavera and Vigil. That one's a big one. Also, he becomes a 2-speed. I called it. I totally called it. 2-speed. When did this? So clearly, this must have been. I think this. Yeah, it has to. I have to have made these changes a while ago, because I think that I just updated it differently. Like some of these changes are from over a year ago, but some of these changes are more recent. But I never went back and changed all of the older changes. But that's crazy. That's funny because he becomes a 2-speed. That's interesting. That's really interesting. Yeah, because if you guys don't know, he already became a 2-speed, so redundant now. But yeah, at the time I made this entry, he was not a 2-speed, so that's very interesting. Amaru, she gets a new weapon, the Iwi Tavor. So basically, the idea, if you don't notice, a lot of these are spicing up old operators by giving them new weapons. A lot of people were complaining, and rightfully so, they're complaining about how there's no new weapons for a lot of the operators in year 3. And at the time, Shifting Tides hadn't come out yet, so we didn't know about the CSRX. But we assumed that we were going to get no new operators or no new weapons for any of the operators the entire rest of the year, which is almost correct. Other than the CSRX, that is correct. But I was thinking maybe this would be a way of lessening the pain a little bit, is by providing these old operators with new weapons to be like, hey, listen, I know you don't like this, but how about this, right? I don't know. But just food for thought, right? You don't have to take it too seriously. So Iwi Tavor with classic built-in scope found in R6 Vegas. Also, same scope that you may remember from, I said inf by accident, but I'm not erasing it. I'm keeping it exactly as it was when I last had it. Also the same scope, it's called the Mars scope. You may be familiar with it from Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Yeah, same scope. If I really want to see that scope again, it's only in two games that I play. I'm pretty sure it's in more games than those, but those are the only games that I play that have the Tavor and have those scopes. And last but not least, Goryeo, he gets the new weapon, the Magpool PDR. And he also gets a new secondary micro Uzi. Yes, Goryeo is the only defender in the entirety of year 4, even with shifting tides. He is the only defender. He's the only operator in the entirety of year 4 who only has one secondary. Every other operator has more than one secondary, but unfortunately, our fellow mad lad Goryeo only has one secondary option. That being, of course, the P229. So that was interesting. Let's move on to the next document. My Rainbow Six bucket list. This is Rainbow Six changes. Operator specific changes. Finka gives a small. Oh wait, is this the same thing? Yeah. No. Well, no. It's very similar. So I'll just quickly go through this because a lot of this is the same. Finka gives a small permanent health boost after the adrenal surge is done, preferably anywhere from 5 to 15 HP. Also, she has the ability to revive herself via stim, but there is a 2 or so second delay. I meant to say 2 or so, but I said 2 or second delay. Okay, sure, whatever. Castle barricades take multiple hits from a sledgehammer to destroy rather than just one, preferably anywhere from 2 to 4 hits. They will be deployed 30 to 50% faster. They are also immune to Maverick's Surrey Tort. That's a big thing. Shield melees only do a high amount of damage rather than just flat out down or kill, preferably anywhere from 70 to 90 HP. I'm pretty sure when I made that entry, it was before shields downed. So instead of like it would go from killing people to just downing them. Maybe, I don't remember. No, I don't think that's the case. Actually, I don't think that's the case. Here's a big one. Shields have a much longer ADS animation and are much louder so that it can be easily countered and leave shields to the role they are supposed to take, preferably anywhere from 300 to 600 milliseconds. Now, I have no idea what the actual ADS time for shields is, but this was I definitely made this suggestion before the shield. I made this before the shield patch where they made it exactly that. So that's another one that I called. Granted, I'm not the only one who said that. A lot of people have been requesting it, but that's what I wanted. And yeah, they did that. Nice. Thatcher EMP grenades only temporarily disable Mute's signal jammer. So instead of them destroying the signal jammer, they just temporarily disable them. That seems simple enough. Nukes sprinting audio. Remember, this is before. This was a while ago, while Nook was not good. Nook's sprinting audio would be much quieter than now, without being as quiet as Kavera. She also has the secondary ability to destroy barricades with a crowbar, just like defenders. Also, she can get access to Jaeger's 416C, Echo's MP5SD, or Jackal's PDW9. So this was back in the high days of Warden P90. So back when Warden P90 was very popular, this is when I came up with this entry. So that'll give you an idea of when that was. Number 7 is very, very interesting. Twitch's F2 only has a 25+1 round magazine, just like in the R6 Vegas series. Once again, I called it. If you don't know, back in the day, I say back in the day, it was not that long ago. Very recently, they reduced Twitch's magazine capacity for the F2 from 30+1 down to 25+1. I made this entry back then, and they actually did it. I think they actually did it because they were testing it out with. I don't know if that's why they did it, but I do know that back when the Hot Breach Hot Breach podcast crew, I think when they went to Barcelona, that was back when the Hot Breach podcast crew was a thing. And it was actually their last podcast. When they went to Barcelona, they they got to mess around with some of the tools, and one of the things that they messed around with was giving Twitch a 25+1 round magazine. And I think that I made this entry before that. I was like thinking, I've been thinking this for like a year, and I don't know when I wrote this down. I wish I had proof. Habanos X Cairo's red outline is visible even after being set on the wall until the detonation sequence starts, in order to provide more clarity on how the pellets will land and detonate. This one was a no-brainer to me. Whenever they first introduced Habana, I thought it was really weird how after you place the pellets, you don't like setting down the second pellets was confusing because it would always seem like if you place Habana pellets on first the top then the bottom, it always seems like sometimes even though you feel like you have enough space, the top row clashes into the bottom row of the previous, and then it just is nullified, and now you don't have a perfect Habana hole. So I think this is a no-brainer. I feel like this should have been in here from the beginning, but clearly not. Complete rework of Jackal's Inox scan. This was a way back before they even suggested nerfing Jackal. This was when everybody was saying Jackal is overpowered. Because I know exactly what this is. This is another one that I called it. And I got it based off of, I think it was a request on Matimio's Sunday mailbox or something like that. And I saw that entry and I thought it was really clever. So I basically had my own twist on it. But this was way before they actually implemented it or even really thought about it, I'm guessing. Oh, actually, it says it right here. Get flanks. It was get flanks, get answered. Never mind. Sorry. It's kind of the same thing. Let's be real. Just different YouTubers. So, complete rework of Jackal's Inox scan. Depending on the color of the footprints, the first few scans may just be warnings. For example, if the footprints are red, the scan works just like normal. If they are yellow, the first scan will actually just be a warning and will not scan the target. If they are blue, the first two scans are just a warning. Something like that. Or, like suggested on Get Flanks, Get Answered video, perhaps how long the footprints last, depending on if the footprints were left while crouch walking, or sprinting, or upon scanning a target with Jackal, it would also scan Jackal himself. So there's a lot of different things to unpack here, because this was back when Jackal was overpowered, so a lot of people were talking about how to nerf him. I think my decisions were very interesting at the time. Obviously, I don't think he's an issue now, but it's interesting to look back and see what my suggestions were. So, the first one I suggested was, depending on how old the the footprints were, would depend on how many warnings you got. So it would give you enough time to reposition. Like if you know you're about to get scanned, you can reposition and get yourself into a better position. That way you're not screwed over immediately, right? But if Jackal was right on top of you, and you got your red footprints right from where you just walked from, then it would scan you immediately. Stuff like that, right? I'm not going to read the rest of them. You can read them. Number 10. Depending on how far away Dokebi is from any specific target, the logic bomb will last longer or shorter. I forgot I made this entry. So yeah, the logic bomb is still a global, but if you're like right next to the target, the logic bomb will last its appropriate 12 seconds. But if you're on the other side of the map from the target, it'll only last like 2 seconds. So it's basically, redundant for you to actually pull out your phone and stop the call. But yeah, I think this one's actually really good. Maverick's Surrey Torch would take longer to initially break through the wall, and if it were to be used on the right side of the wall, would initially only break through the reinforced part. That way it could be fused through. Ooh, that would have been annoying. And would have that loud audible cue during it to give defenders a better chance of preparing for a breach. Okay. Number 12, Tachanka gets 2 turrets. This one was just a simple one. What's wrong with Tachanka? Nothing. Just give him 2 turrets. Or he gets Finka's Sarich. It's actually, I said Satrich, but it's actually Sarich. So I suck. For the longest time, I thought it was Satrich. That's not even a misspell. I just thought it was Satrich. And then I looked it up, and I'm like, oh, it's actually Sarich. Obviously, the Sarich, by the way, is the Spear Through Your Weight, which, fun fact, was actually a gun featured in Call of Duty Black Ops 2. Yeah. You guys remember the SMR? Well, in the file names, it's actually called the Sarich. So, fun fact. Echo drones become much more visible for much longer after the sonic blast is fired. So your drones are completely invisible for as long as they need to be, but the second you fire that sonic blast, it is visible for a very long time. I think that's a pretty good counter, because the fact that you can shoot it and it still remains invisible is kind of but I think this is a good one. Lesion's goo mine gets a massive change. The mine doesn't do initial 10 damage, unless if the target walks into a third mine consecutively without taking out the needle, essentially requiring 3 mines to be next to each other in order to do instant initial damage. This can be rectified by increasing the amount of initial damage, and won't damage the target for quite a while, preferably anywhere from 5 to 10 seconds, and will continue to do progressively more damage to the target every tick or so, giving attackers the chance to prevent taking damage from it while still providing an incentive to take out the needle, and would require a legion to be more strategic about his placements, and deciding which areas he wants to use as a warning and which ones he wants to actually cause damage with. That is a mouthful, and I think it is a really interesting suggestion. So, which is still relevant today because Legion is still a problem today. So essentially, you could either have the Legion goo mines as like a hey, they're over here, or you can set three of them next to each other, and they do like 20 damage. Like if you put three of them next to each other, they do 20 damage, but that's also like half of Legion's inventory. So you know, I think that's a pretty good one. I think that's a really good one. Ella's Gershmot mines have a very small, very short audio cue before they detonate, giving the attackers a warning that they are about to be stunned. And if they are at the very edge of their detonation radius, gives them a chance to avoid being detonated or stunned. So essentially, what it is instead of the concussion mines stunning you immediately, and you have absolutely no chance to do anything about it, it'll have a short delay before it stuns you, and that way, A, you know you're about to be stunned, and B, it gives you the opportunity to run away if you're at the edge of it, or it gives you the opportunity to, if you're like Shiko, Bolo, Joystick, or Virtue, gives you the opportunity to flick and shoot the Gersmont mine if you're really quick. I think that would be really interesting and it's still not overpowered because it gives you that decision of like, will I continue holding this angle but be stunned, or will I look up and shoot the Gersmont mine because it'll be a target in just a moment. Alibi number 16. Alibi has significantly toned down idle movements and no longer waves her hand in front of her face after being stunned, making it ever so slightly easier to deceive attackers when standing still. Alibi's prismas can also be scanned by drones, just like regular players. Now, this seems simple enough. Alibi's prismas are kind of, a little bit useless, and they're entirely useless unless if you play with default everything. You have to have first off, you have to have the MX4. You have to have as far as like pretending to be a decoy, that is, you have to have the MX4, you have to have a default headgear, default uniform, you have to have no weapon skins on your MX4. Looking like a clone is actually rather difficult. But regardless, I would like to have that element of even more, confusion by because that was her whole point. Her whole point is to be confusion, right? Like that's her whole gimmick, right? But like I suggested, right? She does move around a little bit. Let's tone that down. Make sure she pretty much doesn't move at all. No longer waves her hand in front of her face after being stunned. That is a big deal. If you are stunned, you will wave your hand in front of your face, and obviously that ruins the deception. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, but at the same time, you could argue that waving your hand in front of your face after being flashbanged makes no sense, period, because it's not going to make you see better. So, maybe she's just because she has goggles, right? She has goggles. Maybe she's more resilient to flashbangs. There is really no lore explanation. Let's just make it a game mechanic. Sure, she doesn't wave her hand in front of her face. Let's just make it a game mechanic. We don't have to explain it with lore. And Alibi's Prisma can also be scanned by drones just like regular players. That's a big deal. If you're like droning out a room and you scan an Alibi target, it'll show up as Alibi and an Alibi target. So if you are scanning her one of her decoys for the first time, then it'll say that is her, and the drone will say that is her, and that is Alibi. So if you just drone it out from a distance and you hold Y and you don't get anything, then you don't know, right? Because it's too easy to tell. And that would definitely help the illusion a lot more. Number 17, Maestro's Evil Eye can be destroyed by Glaz's OTS-03 in about 7 or so shots, but will require 2 to 3 Sledgehammer's hits to be destroyed. I think that Maestro's Evil Eye should not be a one-hit Sledgehammer destroy. 2 to 3 hits is totally fine. Even just the second one, I think that's totally fine. I prefer 3 because it's not like the biggest deal in the world to hit Maestro Evil Eye 3 times. I mean, if you can't do it, then you shouldn't be doing it. I feel like it's just too easy to destroy with one hit. Same with Castle Barricades. And being able to be destroyed by Glaz's OTS-03, that's simply just to give Glaz a little bit more wiggle room. So far, he's great at, like, he's somewhat good at destroying stuff. Like, he can open barricades, he can open hatches, he can make some pretty decent-sized holes. I don't know if I have it in here, but I would also like to see Glaz be able to destroy studs. That would be an awesome addition, especially since Glaz is being vastly overtaken by Callie, now that Callie's in the game. So giving Glaz a little bit of love would be nice. And being able to destroy these evil eyes, even if it is quite quite a large amount of bullets, would be a very nice change. Also, would be an indirect buff to, well, not an indirect, it would be a direct buff, or direct nerf to Maestro. So, I think it's good. This one is a controversial change, as it says right there. It literally says controversial change. Mozzie's standard drone has a slightly different sound than drones controlled by attackers. When I say Mozzie's standard drone, what I mean is when Mozzie steals a drone from an attacker that is not a Twitch drone. So, Mozzie's standard drone has a slightly different sound than a drones controlled by attackers, making it easier for attackers to distinguish Mozzie's drones from attacker drones. However, he gets an extra pest. I don't know. It seems like it's not a very necessary change. I also don't care if they keep it the way it is, but I think having a little bit of a difference between Mozzie drone and regular drones would be nice. Warden would be able to move significantly more before having the movement penalty when seeing through smoke. Also, Warden should become a 2-speed with access to Maverick's AR-15. Now, this was an interesting thing, right? So my logic was, this was when they first introduced Operation Emberrise, it was a big shock because it was the first time ever that we've had a 2-speed with an ACOG ever on defense. We've had, of course, 3 speeds with Jaeger and Bandit, but this is the first time ever we've had a 2-speed with ACOG. And they said that they were willing to tour with 2 speeds with ACOG. And I thought, well, that leaves a perfect opportunity to give Warden the AR-15. It is underused, and it is not very good, but it would have a lot of room for use here. Like, it's used by 2-speed, and it has an ACOG, which is totally fine. They did it for Goryeo. Why not this operator? Of course, we've had the Boss G ACOG since then, but they, at the time, it was like, hey, they did it for Goryeo. Perfect opportunity to give Warden an already established. I mean, it makes total sense too. The AR-15 is an American gun. Warden is an American operator. It just makes total sense to me. Number 20. The glass part of Clash, Blitz, and Montaigne shields are no longer bulletproof. They can be really strong, like 5,000 HP or so, but will eventually be destroyed. This is not so much a big deal for this is not so much as big of a deal as far as actually, being a nerf to shields. And remember, this is before all the shield nerfs, right? This is before they had the slow ADS time or anything like that. So this is when shields were actually a problem and they were being demonstratively abusive. So giving shields, and I still think we should have this change even now, but making it so that these shields are no longer bulletproof. And I said 5,000 HP, maybe even higher, because it's really not that hard to shoot a, I don't know, maybe, yeah, no, I think 5,000 HP is okay. But it'll take a lot of bullets to destroy it, but they will eventually be destroyed, which will, and I see no reason why not to do it, right? It barely affects the shield operators, but it gives an extra opportunity for all the operators on the defense team to actually take advantage, especially Tachanka. If Tachanka has a Montaigne backed into a corner, he can lay a lot of fire really quickly, and it will be perfect, right? Blitz's flash mechanic has a small but significant delay after pressing the button, preferably 200 to 500 milliseconds. So, in this case, you would press the button, it would go ting, and then it would flash like a split second later, rather than it just being ting, like you flash, and that was an awful sound effect, but you get the point. Rather than it being a flash the moment you press it, instead it will be like a 200 to 500 millisecond delay after you press it. This was once again just another, side effect of back when shields were oppressive, and I was trying to figure out how to nerf shields. So I don't think it's necessary nowadays, but it's interesting to look back at what I thought would be an interesting buff. All operators. This one's a big one. Not a big one. This one's a minor one. Include an accuracy penalty while using sidearms with one hand. For example, if you're holding a shield or carrying the hostage. It makes, to me, total sense that if you're firing your gun with one hand, your accuracy should be worse. That is how it should work. If you're carrying the hostage, because I mean that's the reason why you use the pistol with two hands, right? Is for better accuracy. It makes no sense that if you're holding the hostage or using a shield, that your accuracy would be exactly the same. So your accuracy should be penalized. It doesn't even have to be by a lot, but there should be some kind of penalty to dissuade you from using the shield or carrying the hostage for a very long time. That one's simple enough. Map changes. House. The second window in kid's bedroom is permanently closed, as well as the first window on house is permanently open. I don't know what the first window on house is permanently open. The first window. I don't know what this means. I don't remember. I wish I was more specific when I said it. The first window. I have no idea what this could mean. Anyways, so yeah, closing off that window, because if you're at that kid's bedroom window that leads to, like, you have that line of sight that goes all the way from kid's bedroom all the way down to the workshop conjunction area, that is ridiculous. We need to close off that window, give a little bit more wiggle room. Also, opening the window, I don't know what window it is, man. I don't know. So, I'm sorry. I don't remember. This one is a big one I really want. Add another difficulty option for Terror Stunt called Easy, where you have the ability to refill primary gadgets. Let me have fun. Let me mess around with refilling all the primary gadgets. Let me use the E1D as many times as I want. Let me use Ash's breaching charge as many times as I want. Just let me have fun by doing the cool things. Like, you already, it's not about breaking the game, because you already give me infinite use of breaching charges and barbed wire, or whatever the case may be. So just give me infinite uses of all the other cool gadgets. I think it would be really fun. And just give a warning, like, hey, if you overload the servers, you might break the game, just saying. So be cautious. If you are infinitely spamming Kaid's electro claws over and over and over again, you might break the game. Some kind of warning, I guess, because it's more susceptible to breaking the game. I don't know. The point is that should be a no-brainer. I don't know why that hasn't been in the game already, and I really hope it comes very, very soon, because it is really cool. All right, last but not least, Operation User Experience. This was a while back. This was back in late 2018. So, Operation User Experience. Instead of the traditional first season DLC map, we instead get Operation User Experience. So this is what I was saying. Like, instead of getting, like, it's like Operation Health, but it's for user experience. Instead of getting new maps and two new operators, we get this season. And I think this would be really, really, really good. And I hope that they eventually do this. So, the intention of this season is to bring sweeping changes to the user interface, matchmaking, terrorist hunt, and most importantly, custom games. Absolutely. To start off, the entire main menu will be completely revamped. So, this is a big one. Siege menu changes that would make the game infinitely better. Number 1, add option to randomize customization, charms, skins, etc. This is a big one. I have a lot of different weapon skins, and I have a lot of different things I want to apply, but I can't apply them all at the same time. So, if I can't even rotate through them, right? So I have who can see the dart with her scanner, and Dokebi, whose technology allows her to know if she's being within the radius of the dart. I think that's really cool. I think these are some honestly brilliant. Like, these ideas hold up, I think, in my opinion. I literally haven't seen these in over a year. I have not touched this document since I created it, and I remember some of it, but these are actually some really good ideas. So yeah, those are my ideas from over a year ago and before, over 5 months ago. So, hope you guys think this video was very interesting. And let me guys know what you think of my ideas. You think they're cool? You think they're lame? Let me know. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.